Foust, Codington Connects president of the board. Sara Foust, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm kind of excited about this because it's an interesting subject. I think it's a little bit about like sociology, maybe, and some of that, and it made me think of high school a little because it was about the only the first free education I got on sociology. Yeah. So what did you kind of bring with you a little bit today?
Well, first, a little background about it. So with Codington Connects, our goal is really to build community and connection. And so everything we look at is how we can build community and connection in this area, in this region, and what we can do for that. So there's some things that I've learned over the years, and there's two books in particular that I'm referencing with a lot of this material. One of them is called Mattering by Jennifer Berhaney Wallace, and the other one is called Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam. They both have really great information, but it's really about how we build community. Also, along with that, and what makes this even more timely is April is National Volunteering Month. And so, we have our volunteer survey going right now, and we really want people to get out and fill out the volunteer survey. Part of the discussion on that from that initiative, which again comes from the monastery's initiative that they pulled everybody together. And so this is one of the initiatives that they're working on out there. But that discussion has evolved from just volunteering to how do we build connection in our community? And so as we're evaluating that survey, that is still live, we are going to leave it up until April 16th. We really want to get input from people on how can we build connection? What types of things can we do to build connection? And that's why Codington Connects is supporting this initiative through the monastery so that we can talk more about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, their whole mission is, working on affordable housing, and they've got student housing and veterans they're working with. So this is kind of another cog of the wheel, I guess it seems. So one thing that was kind of interesting is they talk about like social capital and how the community, I guess, intertwines maybe. Can you talk a little bit about some of that?
Yeah. So it's really this idea, social capital. We were talking a little bit before we went on air. It's kind of a weird thing. Like it's not financial, but it is a value. So this social capital idea is like the value that we get from the trust and how we work better together. So, the more social capital we have, the better our community is. And that can be individually and it can be collectively as a community as well with that.
So when you're talking like the volunteer survey, for instance, like sometimes I think people might wonder, well, what do you need a survey to figure out whether or not you need some volunteers? And it's more or less kind of focusing in on what you want this person to focus in on, right?
Right.
And so I think that's also why you keep reaching, like learning more about these things, because it continues to expound on like the focus, because you have to have a core, right?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it really is like, so we can build a program, but it's not just about the program, it's about the relationships that it builds. And so one of the things we've realized is we don't necessarily just need a volunteer coordinator, we need programming that can support connection in our community. And so what does that programming look like? We need to build relationships with that, really serve the people and strengthen our networks within our community and look at what we're doing better as a community. Also, and the data shows, and that's what some of the research in this shows, the more we have those connections and the better our social capital, the better our community as a whole. So it shows in Bowling Alone, which is this idea that it's based off the premise that our bowling leagues have really declined over the years and what's happened. And that's like correlates to a decline in our involvement in our communities and society. But it's not just having a bowling league. It's the investment in a shared activity with a shared group of people. So when you have that, then data shows if the more activities that you have that people share an investment in, the stronger your community is. So the more we can have events and activities and ways to connect as a community, the stronger Watertown will be.
So it's not necessarily that you have to volunteer yourself if you're not into volunteering, but maybe this group of volunteers will put on an event that you could benefit from then. So if you participate in the survey, then something can be put together that you might really enjoy in the community.
Right.
And that then creates our whole social capital of the whole community is then high, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what we're doing. And part of the survey, which came out of a partnership from some of the service organizations like Rotary and Optimist and Lions Club, and those organizations also wanted to get some data, because that is also part of that social capital or community building. If you just join a social organization like that, that's doing good for the community, you feel a stronger tie towards the community at large. So we want to promote all of those kinds of opportunities. So can we build new things through a volunteer coordinator? But also, can we also promote different organizations and activities like service organizations or sports teams, or just different ways to connect? The library does some really great programming. And so can we create that, but create it and then start building community around those pieces?
Mm-hmm. So then when you consider like Codington Connects and having all of those organizations you work with, is that, do you see that those kind of they're almost changing each other a little too, because, they're all working together now. So sometimes they're evolving a little bit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really is, because, I will always say, when I started in this position 5 years ago, our social service organizations we didn't know each other. So not only were we not really working together, we were almost sometimes working against each other. And this ability to get to know each other, connect with each other, has made us stronger as our own individual organizations. We work better together. But then really what we want to do is lift up the people that we serve too. And I think that's some of the great work that's happening is our social service providers, nonprofits, we're really lifting up the whole community. Historically in Watertown, I said for years, and I'm not the only one that said it, and this is not unique to Watertown, but we have the haves and have-nots. And how do we get people to kind of bridge that, come together and connect as a community so that we all know each other? For a community this size, it's amazing the divisions that we have on different socioeconomic levels. And so that's some of this work that we're trying to do, is to bridge that and bring people together so that we don't, not only do we have groups within our own economic class, but that we also are building bridges across those economic classes as well.
Mm-hmm. So that makes me think of, the bowling situation. Mm-hmm. So if you have more and more of these digital interactions versus the physical interactions, then these people aren't intermingling, if you will.
Right.
So no matter what middle class, high class, wherever you're at, online people can kind of look a certain way, portray. But when you're out and about, your personality is just who you are. So these people end up getting along no matter, what class you are, let's say. Right. And you learn a lot more about just the individual themselves. And then that's when people start working together and making things happen and things like that, where online you might judge someone or a situation just based on a picture, maybe even.
Right. Right. And it goes to, too, we know we have this loneliness epidemic where people just feel really alone, and it contributes significantly to mental health issues, depression, anxiety. All of those things really are contributed to when people feel alone and when they feel like they don't have connection. So the more connection we can build in our community, the more we can step out of that just online piece. Not that people can't build connections online, because I know there's people that build really good connections online. I'm not really one of those. I know there's people that do. So I don't want to discount that. But I think a lot of people need the in-person connection, and we can do better in our community and really help people feel more connected.
Can you go to Codington Connects website too and find some of the various connections that might fit your mold, if you will?
Yeah. So one of the things I loved with Codington Connects, well, first of all, on our resources list, there's a list of volunteering opportunities in there. It's not connecting you with anything, but it's a list of organizations, and it's not comprehensive. If you are an organization that has a volunteer opportunity and would like to be added to that list, please give us a call and we'll be happy to add you. But there is a list on there. But what's even more fun is there's a drop-down menu on the homepage. There's a drop-down menu, and it actually has like adult activities, teen activities, children's activities. And so you can go on there and look at, and it's really comprehensive. I have to give a shout out to, I don't know if people in our community know Jen Bender, but she was working for the marketing company that helped develop the website for us at the time that it was developed. And she did an amazing job really researching and finding out what services we have in our community and where people can get connected. So we have a really comprehensive list because, again, part of our goal with Codington Connects is build connection. And so those drop-down lists are on there and you can search all kinds of different activities in our community.
Wow. Okay. And so what was kind of the concept of the other book that you guys were talking about?
So, I mean, so they kind of really interrelate. Mattering is really, how do we make people feel important? So Bowling Alone is really more on a community side, and that's where how we build connections across service organizations. Mattering is how we make people as individuals feel important. And so there's this idea of like, you matter, but there's actually scientific data behind how we make people matter. And so I think that's really interesting too. It's making people feel valued and bringing them in and really showing that their life has importance. And so in the social service world, it's not only providing the service to people, but helping the people that we're providing the service to also engage in giving back and promoting that. You know, a few weeks ago, we had a page on talking about transition to success. And one of the key components that we're working on building with transition to success is the volunteering and mentoring piece, because we know that when people have the ability to give back and to build relationship, it helps them feel better about themselves. And so we want that for all members of our community, which is, again, going back to the survey, circling all the way back around to the survey. That's one of the things we want to know. What are people interested in doing? We used to have some youth mentoring programs, and there's people trying to fill the gaps. There's a great school-based program through churches in town that does some youth mentoring. The Boys and Girls Club has their staff doing some mentoring, and there's some other mentoring opportunities here and there across the community. But are people interested in a broader mentoring program? Do we want to connect with youth more, or there's other programs that you can mentor families and support families? And so what kinds of opportunities does our community want so that we can all feel like we matter and really meet that scientific definition of mattering? Yeah,
well, really, it sounds so simple, but it's like getting the majority opinion out there so that, you as a community entity can kind of, we're saying it again, but can focus in on, okay, this is what we have a need for. We need to focus on this now. And then this was maybe the next need, and so on and so forth. So that you can continue to evolve the care as the community changes.
Right.
I think when I was younger, all I can remember is like the welfare office. And it was like, real bluntly and, off key, it was kind of like that's where broke people went to get cheese or coupons or whatever. I never really knew. And now when I think about it, it's so much more than that. It's like anybody and everyone can go in there for any kind of assistance.
Right.
So I think that this is so important. A survey like that is so much more, or it's deeper than what people realize.
Right. So. It really is serving the whole community, because there are a lot of people that maybe retired early. And so like economically, they're totally fine, but how are they building connection? Maybe they have resources to build connection, but maybe they're feeling really lonely themselves. And we want to provide opportunities for that. Churches are a great resource for that. Not everybody's connected to a church. So what are some other ways that we can help people of all ages, races, genders, economic classes connect to each other? And then that in turn makes Watertown a better community, because when people are involved in something like an organization or mentoring, all of a sudden they start to feel more ownership for our community as a whole, because this is their community and they're invested. And that's really the big picture. We want people to be invested in Watertown as a community.
It's like a positive empowerment instead of like an arrogancy. It's more of like a prideful empowerment.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think unless you have volunteered before or something of that nature, you get that kind of feeling, you know, like maybe they call it fulfillment or something.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because in this dream world, you volunteer because you want to help other people. But the secret to the whole thing is that when you volunteer, you are helping yourself and you feel better about yourself. So not only are you benefiting other people, you're benefiting yourself, which in turn benefits our community.
Yeah. Well, that is community because it helps you and them. So
yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are just books that people can just purchase then and read them themselves, and kind of it gives you a lot more explanation on kind of more sociology kind of stuff, what we talked about deeper and whatnot. Yeah.
You can, they're both at the library too, you know, shout out to the public library. You can always check them out there. I've done the audiobooks there. That's my thing.
Yeah.
But you can get them anywhere. And even if you just do a quick research, actually there's a movie or a documentary on bowling alone. I can never remember the name of it, but it's currently on Netflix. I just saw that it's going to be going off soon. But it's a great documentary too. If you don't read, there's some great information there on how to build community. They're a little dry, but some really good information in them too. So
I'm not much of a reader.
Yeah.
I say that, but then like I read articles and stuff all day, every day. So actually I am, but okay.
Different.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Documentaries are kind of good. So
yeah, it's easier.
And then always go to CodingtonConnects.com. Is the survey pop up right away?
Yeah, I think we had them post it on there, but it's also on the scrolling page. So like when it scrolls through on the homepage, you can click on the survey too.
Okay.
Yes.
And then go to Codington Connects on Facebook. Everything's on there, as well as the agency of the month and the, is it individual of the month? Okay.
Yes.
I was going to say member, but
or individual, so that we highlight. Yep.
Okay. Very good. Anything else?
No, this has been great. Thank you. This
perfect.
is a little different today, but it was good conversation.
I do. I like that because I think sociology in general is very generic, but those are good conversations because there's so many different kinds of people, and you kind of have to just figure it all out and get along. So that's perfect.
Right. Yeah. Build our community.
Very good. Well, make sure you check out CodingtonConnects.com. Everything that you need is right on there. They're your resilient community partner, right?
Perfect. Yes, we are.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us again. We appreciate it.
Yep.
First, let's get back to some music, and then I'll stop everything. So thanks, Sarah. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having us.
You bet.